Fareed Zakaria GPS, seen in Sunday morning 10 Eastern and Pacific.
What exactly is the Knights Templar? The group has come to everyone's attention because of Anders Breiveik's killing spree in Norway, now just about a week ago. He claimed in his rambling manifesto to represent a modern-day Knights Templar. But who are they? The name might ring a bell, especially if you've seen the Da Vinci Code.
A secret brotherhood, the Priory of Sion, and their military arm, the Knights Templar.
Or national treasure.
They brought the treasure back to Europe and took the name, the Knights Templar.
Or one of any number of recent films. But these are, of course, all fictional. What are the facts? The Knights Templar was a Christian military order founded in the early 12th century. Its members were said to be elite warriors who wore distinctive white mantles with a red cross. They made their reputation by winning a series of battles in the Crusades. Ironically, the Knights' first headquarters were in a mosque, the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, because they believed it was built on the top of the ruins of Solomon's temple. Their name, Templar, comes from that legendary temple. The Knights' main job was said to be protecting Christian pilgrims from Muslims, amongst others. To this day, the site of the mosque and the Temple Mount remain one of the most heavily disputed places on earth. The Order of the Knights Templar was dissolved in 1312, but its legacy lives on. Rumors still swirl that the group exists, but in total secrecy, and guards the Holy Grail. From what sounds like fiction back to fact, we know that Breiveik saw himself as a Knights Templar. But get this, halfway across the world from Norway, a new drug gang has recently arisen in Mexico. They call themselves the Knights Templar, and they claim to live by a religious code, a copy of which the Associated Press recently obtained. It says that the drug-dealing Knights will, quote, defend the values of society against materialism, injustice, and tyranny, and that its members will be honorable, noble, courteous, and honest. So they are honest drug dealers selling marijuana, cocaine, whatever, in the name of God. Anders Breiveik's fascination with the Knights is less bizarre. In fact, he's part of a larger movement. People like Breiveik are trying to resurrect the idea of a modern-day crusade, a real clash of civilizations against what they see as an Islamic invasion of Europe. In fact, Muslims make up only 3% of Europe's population, and that's likely to rise to between 5 and 8% by 2025 and level out at that point. But that doesn't change the reality of the anger, hatred, and the violence. Ironically, in Breiveik's nostalgic view of the medieval world, Knights Templar resembles nothing so much as Al-Qaeda, another terrorist organization that is fundamentally opposed to the modern world. We still don't know if Breiveik's boast that there are more lone knights like him waiting to act is true. But if his depiction of the knight as a self-sacrificing assassin on a larger holy mission sounds familiar, it is because it too is mirrored in Islamist terror. That's exactly what a suicide bomber is, a lone fighter often acting in the so-called interests of a larger movement and willing to kill innocents to draw attention to the cause. While we've all focused on the dangers of radical Islam and of Islamist terror, the attack in Norway should remind us that there is actually a pretty large problem with other sources of terrorism in the West. The European Union's 2010 Terrorism Situation and Trend Report had some fascinating findings. It showed that of the 294 terror attacks committed in Europe in 2009, only one was conducted by Islamists. That's a third of 1%. The most recent statistics show that there were 249 terror attacks in Europe in 2010. Only 3 of those attacks were carried out by Islamist terrorists. Again, that's about 1%. Most of the attacks in 2009 and 2010 were by separatist groups or anarchists. So perhaps that's the lesson we can learn from the events in Norway. Islamic radicalism is a real problem, and Islamist terrorism a real threat. But if we ignore other kinds of threats, we are likely to be blindsided by another Gabby Giffords shooting or another Virginia Tech massacre. As Norway has become the most recent nation to learn, the enemy can just as easily come from deep within.